Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Camjar Djoweini, and I am a business development manager covering the Nordics here at Erlang Solutions. Today's session, we're going to talk about one of the most important, but also one of the most overlooked phases in the lifecycle of a fintech product. The period after you've built your minimum viable product, the MVP, and you're starting the transition towards something stable and scalable and mission critical. This stage where many founders and teams get stuck is very common. The MVP works, the customers are using it, and the idea is valid. But the underlying system starts to show cracks. Today, I'll walk you through what typically goes wrong and why it happens, and how smaller fintech teams can scale safely and reduce risk using the Beam ecosystem and Elixir. Let's start with a quick introduction. I spent the last several years helping companies take their MVPs and evolve them into production-grade systems, especially in the fintech environments. I worked with teams that were 2 people all the way up to 200 people, and across all of them, the patterns are surprisingly similar. The MVP stage is exciting, but the moment real usage arrives, the system starts behaving differently. So what was fine for a demo or for a few early customers suddenly becomes a problem at scale. That's what inspired me to create this webinar, because the frustration teams feel at this stage is completely normal and solvable. So why does this stage matter? This stage matters because the fintech is not like other industries. You're dealing with trust, risk, security, money flows, and compliance. Things that have a real-world impact if something goes wrong. When you're building an MVP, the goal is simple. Prove the idea. Speed is everything. But once you have users, regulators watching, and actual financial data flowing through your systems, the stakes change. And here's the key point. The decisions you make right after the MVP stage determines whether you'll grow smoothly or constantly fight fires. I've seen companies save millions by focusing on foundations early, and I've also seen companies spend millions fixing problems that could have been avoided. So the shift after MVP. After the MVP, you enter what I call a reality phase. The product works, customers like it, but the usage patterns you designed for no longer holds. An MVP's purpose is simply to validate the idea, but it's not built for reliability or scale. So what happens here? Well, real users do unexpected things. System bottlenecks appear. Manual fixes creep into your workflows. Infrastructure that was cheap or easy becomes fragile. And the code base grows faster than your actual architecture. Suddenly, the team goes from shipping features to reacting to issues. And that shift is very stressful. Remember, the MVP isn't supposed to handle growth, but the danger is that many teams keep building on top of it without rebuilding the foundations. So let's talk about where fintech SMEs typically struggle in this transition. First, early systems are fragile because the MVP was built quickly. The architecture isn't always ready for the real throughput or real-world failures. Secondly, the manual fixes. When things break, and they will, the team starts patching manually, restarting servers, reprocessing transactions, digging through logs, or handling exceptions by hand. Third, monitoring is limited. Most early-stage fintechs have just enough visibility to know when something is wrong, but not enough to know why it's happening. And fourth, compliance pressure. As soon as you handle financial data at any serious scale, requirements around logging, traceability, audit trails, data retention, and security becomes unavoidable. The combination of all these things and factors create a cycle of firefighting. Teams are tired, releases feel risky, incidents interrupt feature work. But the good news is, this is all solvable, and it becomes much easier if you start early. Compliance is often treated as something you bolt on later, but in reality, good compliance practices are good engineering practices. Here's why compliance matters early. First, it builds trust. Customers, especially in fintech, need to trust your product. Clear audit trails, predictable behavior, and reliable systems build confidence. Secondly, it supports future audits. If your company grows, audits will come. Having the right logs, processes, and documentations from the beginning makes audits smooth instead of painful. It avoids costly rework. Retrofitting compliance is one of the most expensive engineering activities you can undertake. Sometimes you end up rewriting entire subsystems. And lastly, it keeps releases smoother. Compliance creates discipline, version control, testing, monitoring, approvals, all of which reduce failed releases and reduce downtime. In other words, compliance is not overhead, it's architecture. Now let's talk about tools, especially why Beam and Elixir are such powerful choices for the fintech system. Beam is the virtual machine originally built for telecom networks. It's European, it's open source, and a system that requires constant uptime, soft real-time guarantees, and massive concurrency. It's the closest real match to what modern fintech systems need. So why Beam? It's fault tolerant by design. Processes are isolated, so one failure can't crash the whole system. It handles concurrency effortlessly, perfect for transaction processing, messaging, event-driven flows. It's built for systems that need to run continuously for years. It provides predictable performance under load, which is critical when your product scales. And why Elixir in that matter? Elixir brings modern syntax, developer productivity, great tooling, and a thriving ecosystem, making Beam accessible to smaller teams. Fintech teams don't need massive infrastructure or a huge DevOps department when they build on Beam. They get reliability and scalability almost for free from the underlying technology. So what does this mean for fintech SMEs? Fewer incidents, for starters. When your system is fault tolerant and predictable, you spend less time reacting to failures. Less firefighting, your team can focus on product growth instead of restarts, logs, and emergency patches. Easier scaling, instead of rewriting everything when traffic increases, you can scale gradually, safely, and with confidence. Lower operational stress. This is a big one. Reliable foundations lead to calmer teams, clearer roadmaps, and faster delivery cycles. When you're small, you can't afford big outages. You can't afford a growing ops team. You need technology that does the heavy lifting for you. So the key takeaways, let's wrap things up with a few things that you should take with you from this webinar. You have to set strong foundations early. Your MVP isn't supposed to be mission critical, but your next version should be built with reliability in mind. Choose tools that support reliability. So Beam and Elixir give small teams disproportionately large power in terms of uptime, concurrency, and safety. Think long-term, not just MVP. You don't need to over-engineer early, but you do need to avoid building a tower on sand. A little planning now prevents a lot of pain later. So if you should take one thing away from today, it's that reliability and compliance aren't obstacles, they are enablers of growth. So thank you for joining this session. I hope this gave you a clarity on what the post-MVP phase looks like and how smaller fintech teams can scale confidently and safely. If you have any questions or want to discuss this topic further, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. And remember, solid basics make growth easier. Thanks again, and I'll see you on the next session.